forgive me. Aye.
That is pretty loud, so when my speaker goes on, that may provide reverb, I don't know yet, but I can definitely hear it.
Much louder.
Your speaker is much louder.
Oh, that's Randy talking. Did you have your,
I unplugged from the Crestron, and it seems to go up my volume.
yeah, is your volume up all the way, or,
Right now it is because it's plugged in, but if I unplug it, it jumps
oh,
back
which
down.
one's so it's connected right there? It seems like it's playing from your speaker, or it's coming out of the output. You don't want it coming out of your output, you want it coming in to go through there.
And it's,
So you have to go to your preferences, and then go and choose the mic, choose the speaker. Change the speaker if it's going to. So, or not. Just to the Crestron, yeah. No. There we go.
All right.
Sweet, okay.
Okay.
Can you guys
We're
hear
here,
me?
we can hear and see you well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time tonight. My name's Kevin Lewis. I live at 166 Colleen Street Northeast on the south shore of the eastern half of Spoon Lake. My wife and I have lived there 24 years. And I recently got the valuation notice, just like everybody else. And the increase was a hair over $60,000. A 15.6% increase in the valuation of our property. And in addition to being an economist by training, I used to be licensed in real estate, did mergers and acquisitions, and did a lot of valuation back in North Carolina. And so I've talked to Ken Tolsman numerous times. I'm sure he's quite sick of talking to me. But anyway, Ken came out and looked at our house on Thursday, and I was expecting to hear from him today, but I hear he was pretty busy talking to a lot of people. So I'm not feeling slighted in any way, but just, without getting into how money is spent and the philosophy of government and all other stuff, the simple truth is that my wife and I are in our late 60s, fixed income, and having income property values, and let's be honest, taxes are tied to the property values. So if it goes up 60%, you can pretty much expect your taxes to go up a substantial amount. But in our situation, we don't need these kind of hits, especially in the midst of what's going on in the world and our economy generally. In case anybody wonders about it, we're heading into what will be the toughest depression in the history of the United States. I'll bet $1,000 with anybody that that's true. Within 18, 24 months. And it's a tough job that you've got that Ken has because of valuations looking back and projecting them forward. It's a tough job. I don't envy him it, but it has to be done, and we know that costs have to be covered, and we can't whine about what happened in the past and decisions other councils made or other mayors or whatever. We just have to live with what is. But that's our situation. It's quite a bitter pill for us. And I just wanted to really say to you guys, and it's going to be true at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. But I've heard about this phrase for a long time, but now I think we're about to actually live it. What we're about to undergo is a paradigm shift, and people who think that government spending is cost plus are going to have a real awakening because I think the budget of the city of East Bethel has been pretty well controlled for the past 10 years or so. I give credit to Jack for that as well as the council. But you're talking about American people who are strapped. I don't know if you know this figure, but it's something like 60 or maybe 70% of Americans could not put together $400 in the event of an emergency.
So, Kevin,
we're in a definite shift these days. So Anyway,
Ca-
that's
ca-
what I have to say. I don't want to take a lot of your time, so if
Okay,
you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
okay. Kevin, I just want to add that, tonight's meeting is about valuation of your property. We'll have separate meetings regarding taxes later on this year. Ken, it's a lot of noise coming across. There we go. Ken, you mentioned earlier that the lakefront properties all had an increase. Was that increase across the board, the same percentage on all the properties, or how was that done?
Yes, the across the board increase on the lakeshore land was 20%. And that represented a change from last year, up 20%. It's still, the lakeshore land rate is still lower than it was the year before that. So over the last 3 years, the rate has stayed fairly level.
So Kevin, you said your increase was 12%,
15.6%.
so it might even be less than all our neighbors. I'm on the lake too, so
Well, I'm actually here on behalf of my neighbors too, the Downies. They're a young couple with 2 kids, and theirs went up $60,000 too, which is less of a percentage because they spent more for their house. But you can imagine how much that thrilled them to get that bill or that notice, I should say. That they're and now they're going into this period. Not only in a recession now, it just hasn't been verified, but then looking at what's coming beyond that. So
Yep.
that's a real good time in their household, and she's pregnant too. So it's really great. I can handle it. It's people like them that can't handle it. But it's for me, it's a matter of principle.
Okay.
That, and I'm retired, so going to tax court and just going through that experience could be fun for me because I've never done it before, so maybe I'll just do that just for the experience. It only cost me $300 or something to find out. So.
Okay.
But I just want truth. I know it's a real conundrum these days to get truth out of anything. But and I'm not questioning any of you, but I mean in the world generally, everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's got their version of the fact. But I just want valuations to be accurate as possible. And I know it's tough, and I've told Ken this before that it's a tough job.
Yep.
But we also have the pleasure of paying for everybody else to enjoy Coon Lake, because only people who have lakeshore property pay the assessment to take care of the weeds and all this business. But everybody else enjoys it. I don't swim in Coon Lake. I don't fish Coon Lake. I fish other lakes. I swim in other. I don't like swimming in lakes. Period. I like the ocean, but not lakes.
Well, again, Kevin, that is.
I don't water ski anymore, so stuff. But I'm still getting hit $300 a year to pay for everybody else. So it's just, I just don't think it's fair. But whatever, I'm gonna ride this the whole way out. So I'm gonna go as far as I need to because I just don't agree with it. That's
Okay.
all.
And Ken, your recommendation on, I'm sorry, Tom, did you have a
Can I
question?
turn on the volume on this thing? I can't hear that.
Yes, I'm curious, we've heard some numbers. What was his estimated market value and what was his taxable market
How come I can't hear anything?
value? Am I all,
I'm sorry, Tom.
huh?
Tom, what is your question? Tom, do you hear us?
Am I coming across?
Now you are.
I'm curious what the estimated market value and what the taxable market value is on the property. $60,000.
I'm sorry, I've been struggling to hear. So anyway, the previous assessment or value was $384,372, And the taxes payable in 71 will be based on a value of 444,500.
Thank you.
So 372 to 445 or 444.
It,
Yep.
if I can interject here for just a second, his
Yes.
estimated market value was 386.8. People confuse these quite often. His taxable market value, though, because he's a homestead, was 384,372. And then for the current year, it's 444.5. Taxable matches market value now at this point because that homestead exclusion runs out at 413,000. So he's no longer getting any homestead exclusion.
Great.
So, Ken?
What's the going rate for a kidney these days in the market?
I'm here.
So your recommendation is to keep this with no change, correct?
That's correct. I was looking at the value history on this property, and for taxes payable in 2018, the market value was 419,800. Then it went down to 386.8 for the next year, and now it's at 444.5. So really, it's gone up about 20,000 in the last 3 years. Hasn't changed a lot.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lewis, we appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate yours very much too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, is there a second person?
Yes, there is a Mr. Eklund. Well, you can have a chair. I don't know. I think he's everybody. Yeah, well. Steve, we're having trouble with the volume button, so it'll be a minute.
Okay. You can have a seat.
The volume's way over there. That's or the. You gotta listen way over there. I can barely hear it.
Okay.
Well, he can hear from your computer.
I can talk. but I can't hear on this. Don't get no volume out. Don't hear out of it.
No. Oh, that's why. It's on mute. Says it's on mute. Audio unmuted. Gets muted. Audio unmuted. Oh, there we go. Okay, nice people here.
Have somebody talk, see if I can hear you.
Somebody talk over here so we can hear, you can hear.
Yeah, so
Oh, no.
thank you all for your patience this evening as we're trying to work through some things.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go.
Steve, you're on mute if you were trying to say
Oh,
something.
okay. My name is Lonnie Eklund. I live up past Cambridge in Stanton, Minnesota. 2018, I bought a piece of property, acquired a piece of property on Lindall's Point. The piece of property originally in 1926, Lindall's Point was supposed to be a park. So, and then they, I don't know, the county changed their mind or whatever it is and sold it to the property owner. It's supposed to be a park in front of the actual housing lots. They changed their mind, so then the land in front of the houses onto the lake was sold to the property owner. Since that time, I acquired it, and there's a house there, but they didn't buy the property in between the house and the lake. So I acquired that property in 2018. And at that time, the taxable amount on that was $100 per year. Then in 2019, the county approached me and said that there was the adjacent lot next door to it was under tax foreclosure and was available. They wondered if I wanted to bid on it, so I bid on it and bought it for $1,017, and figured that I would have two lots that are in front of two houses on the lake. Okay? These lots are non-buildable and also landlocked. And when I bought it from the county, I thought they would still have two individual lots, but they said I had no choice. I had to combine them. So now I have two lots that are together in front of two different houses, landlocked and non-buildable, and it's just like that, okay. And then when the tax statement came out now for the future taxes, they assessed it at $1,600 for the taxes after I bought it for this year, this year, the tax value, and for the future tax value, which we just got from you guys, went up to $26,600, which is an increase of 16,000%. I noticed on the previous one you were worried about how much the percentages went up every year. Don't you think? I think that 16,000% increase in a piece of property that is non-buildable and it was combined, not at my request, and is landlocked and is basically unusable at this time, except for driving by it on the lake, is somewhat ridiculous. And I have the original map of where the park is here from Lundell Point. But they were going to have a park all the way around all these houses, but then years later, this is 1926. Years later, they sold it to the property owners. And when these houses were sold, these frontages weren't sold with it, and that's how I. So
from $1,600 evaluation to $26,600 for next year. I think that's a little bit out of the price rate, out of the evaluation as far as what it's worth. No, you can't compare it to anything because there is nothing that is comparable to it. It's just an instance that happened in your county. I don't think as far as comparing land values to other land values, there is no way to do that. It's just a special circumstances that happened that way.
Okay. Mr. Tolzman, have you looked at this one?
Yes, I've looked at the aerial GIS regarding the property, and what triggered the revaluation was the purchase. Typically, a forfeit land has a value of $100 on it. When the property is sold forfeit, the county requests an actual estimate of what the property is worth. When I looked at it, I couldn't figure out why, these properties which use the lake never owned the lake shore that went down to the lake. Now, my contention is that if I were of any of those houses that sit behind where these parcels are, I would certainly be willing to buy that strip that would be in front of my house that would give me legal lake shore. So my my estimate of market value is based on the fact that although they're not buildable, they certainly are marketable, and that is my position on this value.
Do we have, sorry, do we have other properties along the lake or in the area that have that same situation?
I can't think of any in East Bethel. There is that situation on Centerville Lake where the St. Paul Board of Water owns property around the lake, and they've been periodically selling that off for I think it's about $10,000 for a strip in front of the home.
Okay.
Is there a way for us to get either county GIS included in the meeting or pictometry? I think it might be beneficial for you to see what the properties look like.
Got kind of a picture here of it.
Okay, hold it up a little bit higher.
Can you just give us the PIN number for this?
I can. 353323120080.
Did you want to see the actual? Okay. But you're part of it, right? You're part of it. Okay. There's bigger pictures here.
Mr. Eklund,
Yep.
What's your property address again?
My it's not. There's really no address. I just have my home address because I never lived there. It's just whatever the.
There's no home address.
Just a property ID. I've never lived there or nothing. It's just property. So as far as a mailing address, there would be nothing there. It would be just by your property ID number. I can tell you the two lots that they combined if you want those numbers.
PIN doesn't help me.
There was 062.
It's not showing up on the GIS.
Because this is so new, I don't know if you guys got it in there. It is.
Did we lose Jack?
Yeah. Hang on.
And it was just combined November 7th of 2019. That's when I bought it.
What part of the lake you want?
It's on the Lindahl Point.
I can't hear you, Brian.
Go back on.
Yeah.
Off of Breezy Point Trail, try that.
Yeah.
That's the road you take to get there.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to leave it cancel.
Jack, can you mute your microphone?
Which one?
Well, I'm gonna suggest we obviously need more information on this.
Yep.
And we are gonna continue this meeting until next Monday. So, I'm gonna suggest that we get more information. Tom?
You want me to leave some of this stuff here for you?
Councilmember Ronnie.
I'm curious how you determine a market value if you don't have a comparison. If Mr. Colesman can explain that. It's marketable, but how do you determine a market value for a marketable property?
I think that's a question for Ken.
Yes.
As I said earlier, the best comparable would be the Board of Water, St. Paul Board of Water sales on Centerville Lake, which have been running about $10,000 for, per site. There's two properties here that could split one of those lots, and then there's another on the very end of the point. So it to try to value the property at market value is difficult, but I think that 26.6, I think it was, is a fair price considering.
Is there anything, Center Lake is what, 25, 30 miles away? It's in Anoka County still, but what features are there? What kind of access? What kind of transportation? There's a school system involved. There's all kinds of things involved with any piece of property that are likely different than what his property is. They should all be consideration.
I didn't quite hear what he said.
There are a number of considerations. What's accessible, like Center Lake? You said Center Lake, didn't you?
Right.
Mr. Colesman say Center Lake?
Just comparison.
Yes, Center Lake.
Is that the one west of Hugo?
Ken, these are questions for you.
I said Centerville Lake. Centerville Lake.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a similar situation.
Urban community with paved roads and everything. There's a school system, shopping, etc., and aren't available at this particular property. So what considerations do they get?
But they forced me to put them together.
This meeting's difficult, and I'm trying to. What considerations Centerville Lake? The whole community is almost.
If I could comment, the fact that a property could have legal lakeshore is worth, in my opinion, worth quite a bit of money. The standard ownership around Coon Lake is property which is owned right to the lake. I don't know of any other properties where the property isn't owned to the lake. This would be the exception. I feel, as an appraiser, that if that having the lakeshore to the lake is a is a valuable commodity. So that is what's driving the revaluation of the property for this year.
Does he own the lake shore or does he have lake view?
This property here is the actual lake shore. And it sits between the lake and the properties that are on the other side of it.
Thinking of his comments, these ones at Centerville, are they buildable lots? What he has is non-buildable, it sounds like. So it will never really accumulate any particular value. It is what it is.
The property in Centerville isn't buildable either. It's just a property that the St. Paul Water Commission had reserved around the lake to protect the water supply for the city of St. Paul when they were drawing water, from the pump house out on Centerville Lake. And I believe now they're getting the water from other sources, but that was the basis for my revaluation of what the property was worth. So if this board feels that the property, has a different value, certainly, I'm fine with that. I just that was the basis for the value that I came up with.
I'm just trying to understand better what we're looking at, what we're comparing to. Is this in a floodplain? We consider things like that.
Well, let me ask this, maybe this will help clarify. Ken, if I understand you right, prior to this year, the property was not classified as lakefront, but now it is because those pins are combined.
It was forfeit property prior that went up for sale by the county. That triggered a revaluation of the property.
If I could interject here, do you know if I hit share content, would I be able to share with you the map that I'm seeing?
Try it once. I think
Try
so.
it? Okay, because that might help a lot for people to understand. It doesn't seem to want to grab that screen.
You might not have rights to do that. Or, well, I think what we're going to need to do on this one. Oh, there we go.
Can you see it?
It's starting to come through now. I see your desktop. There we go.
Okay, so it shows up on this particular map as 2 pins, which have been now combined, as he said, into one. And they would be the ones that are, let's see if a mouse will work. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes.
Okay, they'd be right here. These 2 pieces of property is what he's talking about.
And are there homes on the properties to the east of that?
There's one here, I believe, for sure. I can check on this one.
Yes. Yep.
See, we must have a division combination type thing in the.
There's homes on both of them.
Oh, homes on both. Okay.
Oh, I see. I'm looking.
Yeah, it looks like it is. Now, I don't know how to get my map off of here.
Is there a road access to this property?
Nope.
No,
But
Inter-
I'd have to walk through the owner's yard.
it looks like some of it's wet as well. Not really dry property. It's hard to tell from my angle. There's no road. There's no road assessments or any such thing. There's no, probably no mail road. No, it's just some indiscriminate piece of property. As far as the value, from here it looks questionable. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, Ken. I know you're trying to do your job, but I don't understand. If there isn't a road, you haven't seen it either, have you?
Okay. Mr. Eklund, so the properties you own are just the small ones along the lake.
Yes.
You do not own the properties immediately to the east.
Nope, I don't know any properties other than those two, and there's houses that block that. There's no access to the land at all. I'd
So
have to walk through the neighbor's yard.
they're landlocked properties.
Yes.
Ken, does that come into play?
Normally it would, but as I said, my contention is that if I were owning those homes that are on Breezy Point Drive there that don't own property to the lake, I think they would logically be the ones that would benefit from having lakeshore. So.
Right, but they don't own the properties along the lake. Mr. Eklund does.
Right, they don't own property all the way to the lake. So if they were to sell their homes, they can't say that they're lakeshore when they don't own property to the lake.
Are those two homes classified as lakeshore?
Yes, they are.
How can they be classified as lakeshore when they're not on a lake?
Well, that's something that historically over the years they've always been considered lakeshore, but it's just been recently that I discovered that when Mr. Eklund purchased this, that the property didn't go all the way to the lake. So.
Excuse me for jumping in here.
Yes, Randy.
The property is really only good if you get there by boat. But we're still trying to consider the estimated market value for these two properties. So, really the worth for these properties are for the people who own those two homes to buy those properties. I mean, that's really the only people who I would think would want those properties. Other than that, I think you could certainly consider those other properties in Centerville, but those aren't exactly close either. Thanks.
Can I interrupt? We need to have our computers on mute.
I don't know how to get back to mine to mute it. Oh, there we go.
Can you repeat what you just said 2 minutes ago? I didn't quite get the last part. There was too much noise in the background.
Randy, can you repeat, please?
The basic gist of it is really, to me, the estimated market value is really only good for the two properties that these extend to. Anybody else who'd want to buy those properties couldn't get any use out of those properties unless they were to boat to those properties. And I think it's kind of hard to compare these properties to the Centerville properties just because they are not really that close. So I would not be opposed to, if not keeping it where it was before, at least reducing it in some fashion for these two properties. Thanks.
And I would agree. Tom, you had a question?
Yes, a value's been placed on there of $26,600. If they were to go to it's reasonable to assume that it should be saleable for $26,600. If that's not the case, if it's only worth $500 or something, that's way overvalued. What, is it even saleable? There's no access, except by the lake. Does that make sense to anyone?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what Randy said. They're only valuable to those property owners adjacent. Suzanne, you had a question? I'm sorry.
I did. My comment is, how can you increase a tax by, what did he say, 16,000% based on a feeling, not based on any facts, any data? I don't think this is a logical increase by any means. Maybe $100 or $200, but not 16,000%, especially based on a feeling.
Okay. I think we've all pretty much expressed the same kind of thoughts. I'm going to suggest that, we're going to reconvene next Monday. If we can get a little more information in a packet on this with the maps and numbers, so we can have that for next Monday, and then we can decide what to do about this one parcel next Monday.
I would concur with that idea.
Is there any other information that we'd like from staff for this matter for next week?
Steve, the only thing I'd like to know, I mean, I've got a different picture here. It looks like some of it's wet. I just like to know how much of it's wet. I mean, it doesn't look like it's all dry.
From the aerial, it looks like one of them's almost all wet. So, but I think that's what we need for next week. A better aerial for that.
I don't know about Centerville, but this looks like mud lakeshore, not really. Which, lakeshore on mud isn't going to be worth a whole hell of a lot.
Okay, is there anything else we want from staff before next week?
Is there a way for them to contact like a realtor or some such, and then get some determination if they would place a value, and I guess if it's accessible? You would have to have an easement through those front properties to even walk through.
So, Tom, you're asking to contact those other property owners?
No, to some independent party. I guess it'd be interesting to know what those front properties are worth, what the taxable market value is on those. But like I say, to get to his property, it appears that you have to have an easement for the other property to even see this.
Yeah, that's correct. We do saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Eklund, next Monday, we're going to continue this meeting until next Monday.
Okay, same time, 7 o'clock.
And if there's any information that you'd like us to see, obviously it's a little more difficult with the way we're doing our meetings right now. If you get that to Jack Davis this week.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so next week at 7, same time, same place?
That'll be it, yes.
Same bat channel? Okay, thank you.
Before you, Jack, are we going to reconvene at 7 o'clock next week as part of the meeting?
We can set whatever time we want. We can reconvene earlier when we finish this, we'll make a motion to reconvene the meeting and we can set the time at that point.
Okay, I would get with Jack, find out for sure what time the meeting is then. How's that?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you for being patient with us tonight, so.
No problem. No, let's copy that just to make it see it better.
So I have a comment before we move on, please.
Hang on, Tim, there's no one else there? Tim?
No, that's it, we're done.
Okay. Randy?
Yes, I would like to have the estimated market value for the two properties before they were combined for the next meeting, so that we can compare that with what is currently being requested. And I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else from anyone on this matter? Tim, you're on mute.
Oh. Randy, could you please repeat what you wanted? I was talking with Mr. Eklund.
My request was to have the two properties that were combined and get the estimated market value before they were combined and bring those to next Monday's meeting so that we could compare that with what the combined estimated market value is that is being requested currently for this year. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks.
All right.
May I have one other thing? How many square feet?
Tom?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Say what? How many square feet, how many acres is the total place and what's the estimated amount of water? If it's gonna work down to there's 30,000 square feet or something that's there and it's $1 a square foot for unbuildable, unaccessible even. There's a lot of information here. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have a list of several parcels that where property owners contacted Ken. And that list was sent out to us this afternoon. As I understand it, these are all the changes that are recommended by our assessor are based on our discussions with the property owners. Is that correct, Ken?
That is correct.
So does anyone have any questions right now for Ken on this list of properties? Anything we discussed now or anything we want to bring back for next week? I'm going to take that as a no. So I'm going to suggest that although we don't have any discussion or dispute with this table right now, that this also be held over until next week when we reconvene. And then we'll make this all as one motion, whether we make a change with these two parcels that were presented tonight. So any comment to that?
No, that sounds good to me too.
I agree with Tim. Sounds good.
Okay, so. Okay, with that, unless there's anything else to discuss tonight, hearing none, we will recess the Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting for tonight. Will be reconvened at 7 o'clock on Monday, May 11th, prior to our regular City Council meeting.
Do you need a motion for that?
I'm just recessing, so I don't think we need a motion on it, so. Any other discussion? Okay, then we will reconvene next week at 7 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.